Good morning, good evening, friends. Welcome to my channel, Ek Kitab Se Ek Moti. Today I'm going to read 10 verses from the Thirukkural of Thiruvallur, and the title of this book is Thirukkural of Thiruvallur with English translation by V.R. Ramachandra Dikshitar, M.A. He was a professor of Indian history and archaeology, University of Madras, and this book was published in 1949 by the Adayar Library. So I'm going to read from an online book that's available on archive.org. So the translation is excellent. It was done by, as I said, V.R. Ramachandra Dikshitar, who was an MA of that time, University of Madras. So during those days, the quality of education was excellent. I mean, if you read some of the books written by the BA or the MA of those times, I mean, you realize that their communication skills, their mastery of language, and the way they presented their ideas, I mean, these things were just excellent. And it doesn't mean that, we need degrees to express ourselves well. But what I'm saying is the education system of those times was just very strict and very tough. It was not easy to get an MA degree or a BA degree. So because of that kind of tough selection process or the tough examination, people used to prepare really well in order to graduate or in order to acquire a master's degree. So with those introductory remarks, let me read the 10 verses from the chapter on good speech. So today's theme is communication skills. So how do we become better communicators? I mean, other than the common things that we need to have, for example, a good understanding of language, good grammar, good vocabulary, good body language. There are quite a few things that Thiruvallur mentions, and we can learn from this ancient sage and scholar, and we can transform our lives. And this is especially helpful for anyone who uses words to persuade or communicate with others or to convince others. And most of us use words mainly to convey our thoughts and to influence others positively. So let's see what Thiruvallur has to say on this great ability to communicate well. So the chapter is the 65th chapter, and it's titled On Good Speech in English. So let me read the 10 verses, and I'll just add my remarks as we go along. So this video is going to be short because I have to travel to my hometown, my village, so I have limited time today. First verse. The virtue of good speech is greater than all the other good qualities found in one. Now, it doesn't detract from the other character qualities that we possess, but if you read the Thirukkural, you'll see that usually Thiruvallur focuses on and highlights that particular quality that is being discussed. For example, on the chapter related to education, there is a verse that says, True wealth is education, and all other wealth is not actually wealth at all. So it doesn't mean that character is not wealth. It doesn't mean that some of the other things that he discusses are not important. It's just a poetic way of highlighting the thing that is being discussed, so that the mind is entirely focused on acquiring that quality. So the first verse is, the virtue of good speech is greater than all of the good qualities found in one. Second, as both prosperity and ruin are caused by words, a minister must guard against imperfection in his speech. So speeches can destroy or build up lives. So it's very important to avoid imperfection of speech. Imperfection in a sense, not just grammatical and word related imperfections, but using bad words, using too much slang, and using words to criticize and condemn instead of to build up and motivate. So that's the right use of speech. 3. The minister must use such words as have the effect of strengthening the approval of those who agree and differ. The minister must use such words as have the effect of strengthening the approval of those who agree and differ. So if someone agrees with us, we should be able to speak in such a way that it's reinforced, that agreement is reinforced. They start believing more in what we say about that theme or topic. And those who disagree with us, they should start agreeing with us. So for example, if you listen to the Gettysburg Address of Lincoln, most of the things he said were already those things that people agreed with. But his speech reinforced their belief in those great values of democracy and of the belief that all men are created equal. So I think you all should listen to that speech or maybe read that Gettysburg Address to understand the importance of words. Next, speak having regard to one's capacity to listen, for there is no greater virtue nor wealth than that. Speak having regard to one's capacity to listen, for there is no greater virtue nor wealth than that. Now this is a bit difficult to explain, so I'm just trying to read it again. Speak having regard to one's capacity to listen, for there is no greater virtue nor wealth than that. Now I'll just may have to look at the original one, so I'll just check the Tamil one and then I'll see what it says. So I'm just looking at the Tamil one, Tamil verse 644. This one is, I'll come to this later on. I'll have to look at some other translations of that so that it becomes clear to us. So I'll skip this and I'll come back to this verse number 644. That's a bit confusing. I'll come to this. Then speak out what you have to say only after knowing that your own argument will not be turned against you. So what this means is that when you communicate your ideas, when you speak, just make sure that there's no contradiction in what you're saying and that you are not saying things that you had already said. What you're saying is not contradicting what you had already said. So that's what he's trying to say. Next, a good minister wins the approval of the listener by persuasive speech. Now this is quite obvious, so I'll not explain that. Cogent reasoning and soft speech can bring the people over to one side. Now if you want to win other people to your side, your reasoning should be accurate and flawless, and the speech should be soft so that you can convince and persuade others. So this is something that salespeople can learn a lot from. Those who cannot say a few words correctly will evince a desire to speak much. And this is a kind of criticism of some people who, without having worked on their communication skills, are trying to speak too many words, which may not have much impact at all. And finally, which is the main thing that I wanted to bring up in this video, those who cannot explain well what they have learnt resemble the odorless flowers with their petals open. Those who cannot explain well what they have learnt resemble the odorless flowers with their petals open. So many people have learned a lot, but they haven't developed the ability to explain what they have learned to others. That's why you'll see that it's so important to be able to convey our ideas in simple words and easy words so that others can understand. That's why Einstein used to say that if you can't explain the theory of relativity to kids, you haven't understood it at all. That might be an oversimplification of that, but what he was saying is that you should have the ability to express your ideas in very clear terms. Now, with that, let me just check verse number 644, and I'll check some other translations. Yeah. So the translation seemed a bit vague, so I think this one seems to be a better translation. So I'll just use in my other message, which I record in Hindi. So I'll use this. So this is the one, this is the translation. Understand the qualities of your hearers and then make your speech. For superior to it, there is neither virtue nor wealth. So we should understand the hearing ability, or the audience. Actually, we should understand the audience, what they'll understand, and then kind of adapt our speech to our audience. That was the verse that I was trying to find the meaning of. So if you look at this translation, it seems a bit unclear. So let me just go back to the way the author has translated it. So, speak having regard to one's capacity to listen, for there is no greater virtue nor wealth. And okay, I think what confused me is the use of one. One can be applied to myself, or it can apply to others. So if you see, unless we express ourselves well, so the author has made a kind of stylistic error here. So he should have said, speak having regard to not once, to their capacity, or something like that, so that we know that the pronoun is referring to the audience and not to ourselves. So I read it in a different way. I thought it is, speak having regard to my own capacity to listen. That's why I got confused. For there is no greater virtue nor wealth than that. So that's a minor correction here. So with that, let me just recapitulate. So communication skills are extremely important. They were important in the days gone by, and they're still important in the present circumstances, in the present situation, and even more nowadays, with this explosion of information. There is so much we can learn, there is so much we can gather, but then we should also be able to share it with others, the information that we have acquired and collected and gathered. We should be able to share, just like the flower spreads its fragrance so that everyone else becomes happy, enjoys it, and benefits from it. So with that, let me conclude today's speech. Thanks for watching.